All right, you guys, so today we are going to be painting a flamingo to celebrate the summer months. You guys should have received a paper which you guys will carbon copy over to your canvas. And basically what that's going to be is you guys are just going to lay down a piece of paper that has this drawing on it. You're gonna lay it down on top of this black piece of paper that iTigers is going to provide for you, or the ACE program is going to provide for you, and you're gonna trace it over just like you would trace anything. And you will end up with this outline, which, yes, you'll end up with this outline. The paint brushes that we are going to be using today are a big friend like this and a kind of medium to small friend like this. And finally, something a little more pointed and fun like this. Now for this project, we are also going to be using a special brush, which should be provided for you. However, if it ends up not in your supplies or you would like to buy another one, they come fairly cheap when you order dinner, and that is a plastic fork. So easy enough. So what we're going to do is we are going to start off with a solid line, and we are going to use this brush right here to make this line. And I'd like for you guys to get a little bit of this blue, because this is what we're going to be using for our water. And so we want to make a really clear line between the water and the sky. So we're going to start right about here, and we're just going to do a straight line all the way across. Doesn't have to be perfect, because guess what? Water is not perfect. Plus we're gonna come over and we're gonna blend it out a little bit anyways. Oh no, it's not very straight right there, but that's okay. We can fix it. Just come up here like this and go over. And it's okay if you get a little bit of paint on the flamingo. We can cover that up later, okay? So you're gonna go ahead and put this to rest inside of your cup of water. And you're gonna grab this friend right here with the same blue color, and you are just going to start painting that background. So all the way across. It's okay if you leave a little bit of white. Just get as close to that body as you can. We'll come back to it in a little bit. And if you go over it, that's okay. When it dries, you'll still be able to see, if you look right here, you'll still be able to see the guidelines. So no reason to panic. Painting is not a perfect process. It's just whatever you make it. Okay. You want to lay it down pretty fast, because this brand of paint that we get, I'm so sorry, you're gonna hear my dog a little bit. He's in his kennel, but he still likes to bark at everything that passes by our apartment. Okay. And that's okay. Again, we can cover that up. No big deal. And so keep going across like this all the way. And I like to bring mine over to the side of the canvas, like this right here, because I don't like my sides to show. Now, if you like your sides to show and you want to leave it white, good for you. Go for it. It's your painting. You can make it whatever you want it to be. You can also go back at the end of this and paint the edges black. It makes it look like it's framed. It's a pretty nice, fun way to do things. Okay, so now when you've gotten to about right here, what we are going to do is we're going to take a little bit of white. And I want you to leave the color that you have on your brush, use as much as you can. Notice how I'm just kind of evening out the area where I want it to be a solid, more solid blue. And you're gonna take the same brush and you're gonna grab some of that white paint. Okay. And you're gonna dab it off. You should have about this much. And you're gonna come down here and you're just gonna start painting like this and paint up. And again, it's okay if it gets on the flamingo, not a big deal. We're gonna come back to it. And again, as you can see, you can still see the lines through the paint, no problem. Okay, so I'm feeling like I want a little more white on mine, so I'm gonna add a little more white. You can do that or you don't have to. Again, that's the nice part of this being your painting, is it's gonna look however you want it to. I'm trying to make sure that I get all the spots around the flamingo. And then I really pull that white up into that Florida water blue that we've put down. And I'm gonna pull it over to the side. The biggest thing is you wanna make sure that you're using quite a bit of paint, because you don't want pieces like this to stand out, because that's the canvas and you don't want to be able to see the canvas through that, which you will if you don't use enough paint. So again, I'm gonna add a little bit more white. I'm gonna come down to the bottom and I'm gonna paint up. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take, after you've got a pretty steady transition from that white to that blue, you are going to take your paintbrush with a little bit of the white, go to the side that has the most white. If you have to clean it off, that's okay, but just put a little tiny bit. See how it's just barely the tip up here? And I'm gonna add in some spots up here. Just because water is not one perfect color. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna get to the part that makes it look a little more beachy. And you guys are going to take this little brush that we've been using, that we used to do the line, and you're just gonna put some white paint on it. And you are going to do a little wave. Just a little one. Okay, and you can make it many waves, you can make it one wave. I actually think that I'm gonna redo that because I don't really like the way that ocean turned out, or the way that wave turned out. And so I'm gonna paint it right there, and I'm gonna bring it up. And you can change the shapes. What's nice about paint is you can paint over your mistakes. Just like that. I'm gonna put some more white. And don't worry about the textures. You don't have to smooth it all out. We actually kind of like a little bit of texture. Makes it more interesting to look at. Like that. Okay. Now we're gonna come back in with our brush. And if you'll give me just a second while you guys catch up. You can pause the video at any time, by the way. But I forgot to get some water to clean off my brush. So I'm gonna do that real quick. You can use any brush, anything. I usually like to use a coffee mug. And I also like to keep a paper towel pretty close by me. Just because I don't like to use a lot of water in mine. The more water you use, the thinner it's gonna be. And if you like that, cool. If not, grab your paper towel. Okay, there we go. Now we're a little more ready. Okay. I'm just drying my brush off just like this. You want to get most of the water out. Not all of it, but most of it. The water is what helps to make it brushy. So we like that. Okay, the next thing you guys are gonna do is you guys are gonna take this brown color that was provided for you, and you probably already guessed it, we are gonna make some sand. Yay. We love sand. Just kidding, it's the worst part of the beach, but you know what? If we're gonna get the beautiful waves in the water, it's worth dealing with the sand. Plus you get to make sand castles. Who doesn't like sand castles? So you're gonna get a nice chunk of it with this brush right here. And you are gonna come down here and you're gonna start filling in the space where it meets the wave. And don't worry if you cover up part of the wave, because we're gonna come back and we are going to do a little bit of mixing on it. No big deal. Like we're gonna try to make it a little bit foamier where the water and the sand meets. Now, I will tell you, this is my first painting of sand, so I hope it comes out okay. Again, it's okay if it's a little chunky. It adds texture. But if you don't want it chunky, then just blend it out. And again, if a little bit of the color ends up on it, it's not a big deal. We can cover that up. That is an easy problem to fix. Now, if you started painting the bottom pink, we might be in a little bit more trouble. Okay. I want you guys to notice how we're doing the background first. The reason that we are doing the background first is because when we do our flamingo is going to be the focus point of the whole piece. And so we want to make sure that she is nice, or he is nice and centered and up front. We can cover up all of the mistakes, etc. Versus if we did the flamingo first, then we'd have to worry about accidentally getting the background or accidentally getting the pink on the ocean, and that's going to be a little bit harder to cover up. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush, and I'm going to add that white right down here. And I think I might have added a little bit too much white, but that's okay. I'm going to blend it up a little bit. And remember, it's okay. We're going to come back with some more white in just a second. And if you add too much white, you can just come back and add a little more brown. And it darkens it up. No big deal. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay. Notice how that line is blurred now. We like that. That's kind of what water looks like when it is on the ocean. And so what I like to do is I like to come back with a little bit of white, and I'm going to come back with one of my smaller brushes. I'm going to wash it off real quick because I didn't wash it off earlier. I'm going to come back with my smaller brush and some more white, and I'm going to define that line a little bit. Don't worry, we'll smooth it out. It smooths, that's what it does. And you want to make sure that you follow kind of the same pattern. Back and forth, and then it should flatten as it keeps going. Notice how it flattens a little bit. And then eventually we just want that flat line. And then you're gonna go back and forth, adding that transition. Notice how this is happening. That's okay, just blend it in with that blue. You might not have a lot of blending power right now at the moment because it's dried a little bit. That's okay, just add a little more blue. No big deal. I'm gonna come back. I see some spots over here that I'd like to be covered. Maybe I didn't add enough paint, or just make sure, don't mess up like me. It's okay if you mess up, but try to keep this shape. And again, I'm using a lot of paint down here because I really, really like that shape. You don't have to do that. and that's okay. But I want it personally to flatten out as I go up. And I think adding that little bit of texture to it kind of makes it look like it's really actually washing up. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the sky. That was fun. Our ocean is pretty simple. I might, you know what, actually no, before we go into our sky, I think I'm gonna add a little bit tiny blue to kind of give it a little bit of shadow down here at the bottom. And when I say little bit of tiny, I mean like we're gonna take this little brush again, this little flat one, and we're just gonna throw it in there like that, kind of close to his legs. Yeah. And remember, we're gonna paint over that. You could still see the outline of the legs. Not a big deal. I just wanted a little more in it. And I'm gonna take my big brush right here, this one, and I'm just gonna brush it over like that to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And if there's a little bit of lasting brown on the paintbrush, not a big deal. I know I keep saying it's not a big deal, but really and truly, it's painting, not a big deal. Okay, so the next one we're gonna take is we are gonna take this blue right here, and we're gonna make sure that you shake your paint before you put anything on it, before you put it anywhere, because it's got this stuff in it, this clear stuff that I don't know what it's called, but it helps to keep the paint good. And the last thing you want to do is just dump all of that out, because then you're going to have paint that doesn't last as long. Okay, so we're going to take that big brush again. As you can see, this is a very important part of the brush. Make sure it's nice and clean, because this is one of the spots where you don't want any brown in the sky. And if you are drying off your brush and you're still seeing some brown, like I am right here, you can still see a little bit of brown, just keep washing it, and eventually all that brown will come out. Okay, so we're gonna grab a little bit of that blue. And by a little, I mean quite a bit, because we're gonna cover all this white part. We're gonna go to about halfway, and then we're gonna grab some of that white, and we're gonna put some clouds. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Is we're gonna come up here. And if you don't like the blue this dark, you can either use a different blue, or you can mix it with a little bit of this or a little bit of white. But we're keeping it simple on this end, but if you'd like to go all out and have a little more fun with it, go ahead. I am a huge proponent of mixing colors. Just gonna paint just like that. Barely grazing his head. And right here, I know that we're leaving a little bit of, like, we're not using quite enough paint here, because you don't want this. I know that you think that it looks like, some people might think that it looks like it's shading, but it's not. It's just leaving a bunch of canvas white. It's leaving the canvas unpainted. And why in the world would you buy a canvas if you're not going to paint it? Just go buy somebody else's art. Put some paint down. Okay. So now, just like last time, we're gonna leave a little bit of blue. That's a little too much. So I'm gonna put a little bit down. Leave a little bit of blue like this, you see in the light, on your brush, and you're gonna grab that white again. And we're gonna start at the bottom. Remember I told you we were gonna cover that up? Ta-da! It's gone. And we're gonna paint all the way up into the sky. And let it blend. We want that blend. Is that Adam Sandler movie, Blended? I wish I could remember the song. I'd sing it for you right now. There you go. I'm still trying real hard not to get it on the flamingo. But again, if it does get on the flamingo, it's not a big deal. some more white and we're gonna come over to the other side. And we're gonna blend up. And don't worry, I know it looks a little choppy right now, but we're gonna smooth that out. The biggest part is just getting the color down. See? Looks a little choppy, then you just smooth it right out. Okay, and this little section right here, that's okay. So you see I accidentally covered his head, but that's okay. You could still see the line through it. It's a little bit harder to see because it's a darker blue that we're working with, but it's not a big deal. Still can fix it. Okay. All right. So because I don't like the way my brush fits right here, I'm personally going to reach in with this smaller brush and do the same thing. I'm gonna put a little bit of blue on it, dab it off, just like that much. And then I'm gonna put quite a bit of white to even it out. And I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna start going back and forth. We're still gonna end up with the same effects. I just wanted to make sure that I'm trying to keep the flamingo intact, you know? And it still looks like I put too much paint on there, but that's okay. That is okay. It's not a big deal because we're gonna take it and we're gonna put it over here. Oops, ay, it happens. So if that happens to you, it's okay, don't panic. We're just gonna take our big flat brush and we're gonna brush it off to the side. Just like that. No big deal. Add a little bit of that blue. It's like you did it on purpose. And just blend it out. See? No problem. Okay, so back to this. And try hard not to let your fingers touch the painting. It creates this texture, which is fine if you want it, but personally I like it a little bit smoother. And again, that's an easy fix. Just take that big paintbrush and go back like that. All right, so we're gonna keep trying to fix this by scooping off some of that paint and putting it over here. Scoop a little more paint and put it over here. Scoop a little more, put it over here. Before you know it, our problem, for the most part, is fixed. No big deal. Now we're gonna blend out that extra paint. And I know it looks choppy right now, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back with the same brush and I want you guys to just start swirling it. Swirl it like that. And what you guys are gonna end up with is some clouds kind of on the horizon of your ocean, which personally I think is a lot of fun. Because when you go out to the actual ocean, you guys know that mist is always kind of sitting right above it. And you're just gonna blend it out. You're gonna do it on both sides. And it's okay if it's a little wider in some spots than it is in the others. You can do it a little bit under here. And just kind of let the brush lead you. Because clouds are just kind of crazy. And so personally, I want to add a little more blue to some parts of my clouds. And by little, I mean little tiny, just like that. Notice how you can kind of hear the brushes at this point, or the brush scraping against the canvas at this point. Also, those aren't white pieces that I put in, those are just, yeah. But the reason that you can hear the scraping against the canvas is because it's a little bit drier than it was when we were putting down all the other colors. Because once you put down a lot of paint, you can just kind of use that dryness to make other effects, okay? And then you can hear a car in the background. And then, so, come back up here, and I'm just gonna kind of touch on some of the tops of the clouds. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want a little cloud up here, go ahead and add a cloud up here. Remember, it's your painting. If that's what makes you happy, I support your dreams. And I'm gonna smooth this out because I want this to be a little bit smoother, leading down into the clouds. Okay, and that's kind of where I'm gonna stop. Actually, no, I think I kind of want a little bit of cloud up at the top, just a little one. So I'm gonna take just a little tiny white paint, and I'm gonna do this. And if I hate it, what's nice is I can always come back and fix it. So now remember, clouds are fluffy, so make sure that you're swirling it around. Notice how when you take that little bit of white and you go into that blue, it just kind of gives it a neat effect. There we go. I like that a little bit more personally than the line that I had. And I know it looks kind of weird right now. If your painting is looking kind of weird to you, then that is a sign that you probably need to step out for a little bit and take a break. Because a lot of times when we focus so closely on the pieces that we're working on, it starts to look strange to us. And so you want to make sure that if it's looking strange to you, you want to go away for a little bit and come back, so that way you have kind of a fresh take on it. In the meantime, I'm going to grab that green that we started with, that blue green that we used for the water. And I want to kind of touch up that line because I don't really like how the clouds clouded it up. So I'm going to come right across like that. Bet you guys didn't know that you were signing up for bad jokes too. A surprise. There we go. And I could bring it up a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to bring it up a little bit more because it's weird that one side of the horizon is like, and this one is like, so we're gonna bring it up just a little bit. Okay. Oh, good Lord. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go back and touch up my sand from earlier because I didn't realize that when I dropped that brush earlier, it went right through the sand. That's okay. I'm gonna kind of turn this a little bit so that I can get a better angle. I'm struggle bussing on this side. Okay, there we go. Okay. There we go. Ta-da! All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage you guys to walk away for a few minutes and let this dry, because you do not want, when you go back to paint your flamingo, you don't want all of the blues and the whites to start mixing with flamingo. That you just worked so hard to do all of this. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna take a break and we'll come back. All right, guys, we are back. That means that your flamingo should be nice and dry now. And so I want you to make sure that You've got some nice clean brushes to start off. So if you haven't been putting them inside of your water and making sure that they're good to go ahead and do that now. Pause the video. I'm still using the same water from yesterday, so I have a little bit of blue in mine, but it's no big deal because I'm gonna dry it off here, and it's really not a big deal. We didn't want to smudge this blue into the actual Flamingo. So, but the little bit of blue in the water, that's fine. Okay, remember we're using this nice big brush. Somebody told me that it's called somebody told me it's called a 1 inch. I knew it, but they wanted me to let you know that it's a 1 inch. This big one is a 1 inch. And the smaller flat one that we've been calling our small flat friend is called a 1 1/4 inch. And then finally, we've also been using a round brush, a smaller round brush for smaller things. And I like it because the tip kind of stays like this, which is really nice. And it is a 6 round. There you go, a 6 round. Please excuse my nails. I haven't had them done in a while. I need to, but you know what? That will happen with time. So the first color that we are going to start off with is this pink right here. And it should be provided to you guys. Make sure you shake it up real good. And we want to put a little bit on a palette, or I've just been using a paper plate. It doesn't matter where you put the paint as long as you're putting the paint somewhere, but just make sure that you shake it up. And sometimes you gotta squeeze it a little. There you go. Okay, so we need a little bit of pink today. And we're also going to need some more of the white that we've been using. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on my palette as well. All right. And if you're wondering about how much I'm putting at a time, I'd call it a dollop. It's about that much. I put more white than anything because we're gonna need a little bit more white. And then we are also going to go ahead and put a little bit, actually no, we're just gonna start with the pink and white for now. You'll need other colors, but we'll get to those later. And so I want you to take your 1 inch, your big flat boy, and I want you to stick it in the pink. Get a nice amount because we're gonna cover that whole bird just about. And I want you to start by following the lines that we laid to begin with. I know that some of them are covered up by the blue, and that's okay. And try to go in one direction. Or I suggest trying to go in one direction and kind of following a flow, because feathers usually go in one direction. And that's what makes it beautiful. You probably didn't get that. If you did, I hope you did. But if you didn't, that's okay. I still think you're great. Okay. Bring it around. And if you're scared of getting off and getting onto that blue, it's not a big deal. Just go and grab your smaller brush. Remember, we're following the lines that we originally laid. And don't worry, I know it looks like it's not covered up right now, but if you notice, the more paint that you put, the more it covers up. We're just laying a base right now. Just a base, and that's it. And to get those sides, I like to turn my brush on the side and go like this for a little bit more precision in that area. And again, it looks like it's not covering, but give it time. Be patient, young grasshopper. It will cover. It will cover just fine. Okay. And we're gonna come in like this. And again, if it scares you to be approaching these smaller parts with the big brush, don't use the big brush. Oh. If you notice, I kind of put it in a little there. I'm gonna go in like this. I'm just gonna push it like that. What's nice about these acrylic paints is you can still play with them a little bit. They're a little more forgiving. Okay, and I think I've already kind of pushed my luck enough with this big brush, and so I'm gonna switch to my little flat one right here to finish up the head and the neck. And remember, don't be afraid to leave it a little bit clumpy. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but the effect is really cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cover up where the beak is, because as you can see exactly where the beak goes. And the beak is going to be a mixture of pink and white anyways. So we'll put those lines there when we can, but for now I wanna make sure that we have that head shape. And we're gonna let that dry. Notice how I'm still kind of going with the flow, because I still want those nice flowy lines. I want those nice flowy lines in places. And that's gonna be the first layer. Like, we're gonna come back in just a second and we're gonna add another layer to make it a little bit thicker. So that way it covers up our errors and our mistakes. But don't panic that it's not covering up entirely right now, because I promise you, in the end, we'll get there. All right. So I know I told you that we were gonna need that white, but we're gonna wait for this to dry a little bit before we get back into that white. So don't worry, it's not gonna dry up too much. Again, I messed up. I'm gonna come back at it with my finger and get a lot of that off. Okay. While we are waiting on that, we're gonna come back in. It's a little bit harder to see these down here because we put a lot of layers down here earlier. So we're just gonna do the best that we can. On mine, maybe you still see them on yours. And we're gonna do 2 little bumps right there. Those are going to be the legs for later. So I actually kind of like that it didn't cover up entirely on the bottom half, because it kind of looks a little bit like a shadow. And we're going to go in a little bit and we're gonna add some highlights and some shades. But I kind of like the way that it looks right now with those shadows, those accidental shadows. And so that's what we've got right now. So we're going to stop at this point, and we're gonna grab this green right here, and a little bitty tiny bit of this blue, little bit. We're gonna put the green on the palette. Doesn't take a lot for this part because it's not that much. It's not a big deal. This isn't the defining part of your piece, and if you don't want to do this part, you don't have to do this part, you know, but it's up to you. Like I said, just a little bitty tiny bit of blue. Because we're just gonna take, oh, and I put too much blue. It's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep this green by itself, and with this blue that I have right here that I put too much of, I'm gonna take a little bit of this green and put it right here. A little bit more, put it right here. And now I'm gonna take a dollop of this blue, and I'm gonna mix it. And what I'm going for is a little bit of a darker shade of green than what we already had. And remember, if it goes too blue, it's not a big deal. Just add in a little bit more green. But for the most part, when you mix it, like, you're still gonna get a very green color, and it's not the most important part. So there you go. Now you have a light green and a dark green, and you never had to buy anything. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this dark green color, and we're going to come from the top up here, right here, you see my hand? And we're gonna do, actually I'm gonna go a little bit higher, and I'm gonna do one right here, and I'm gonna do one kind of hanging right here. Okay. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of light green on top of it like this. And I'm gonna put it pretty thick. Like this part you want pretty thick. You want pretty thick. And keep in mind, like, we're waiting for our flamingo to dry. And so that's what we're doing right now. And so if you put too much of the light green, come back. You don't even have to rinse your brush. Just add a little bit more here. And now we're gonna take the tool that I'm so excited to use, and I hope it works because this is the first time that I've used it, but it looked like so much fun. And that's a fork. And I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna put a little bit of this green right here and a little bit of light green like this, so it kind of looks messy. And I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna go whoop, and I'm gonna pull that color down. It's not quite working the way that I wanted it to, but that's okay. Just get a little bit more paint and just keep adding like that. And it gives it a little bit of texture that's fun that you normally wouldn't get if you were doing with just a paintbrush. A little too much there, but that's okay. The more you do this, it'll just flatten it out. And it's okay, again, if you cover up your original lines, it's not a big deal, because we'll come back later and we'll add the lines again. And try to go down, because remember, when you have palm trees or any kind of trees, naturally the leaves are going to want to gravitate downwards because gravity. And it's not turning out quite the way that I want it, but that's okay. Anything that I'm not really fond of, I can always go back with my paintbrush and touch it up a bit. But for now, I really, really like the texture that it's giving it. If you like the texture, awesome. I'm gonna pull it kind of off so that way it looks like the tree is going to be off, and I'm gonna turn it towards you so you can see in the light the texture that we've given to these trees, that we've given to this tree. And it's not even entirely there. But you can tell that it is a palm tree chilling out on a tropical flamingo beach in the middle of your imagination. So I hope you guys like tropical beaches. And that's what we got today. Okay, and like I told you before, I'm going to come back and I want to touch up any imperfections or maybe spots that I'm not really fond of. And I'm gonna do that by remixing a little bit of that dark green, the darker green. And I made it too blue. If you look right here, I made it too blue. And so I'm gonna add just a little bit more green. If you have yellow, you can do it with yellow, but why reinvent the wheel? Okay, so now I have my darker green. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come on here and I'm gonna just kind of swirl it a little bit because there's a lot of paint on there. There's a lot of paint. And I want it kind of thin for this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come right here where I wanted the brush to be, and I'm just gonna do that. And now we have created a palm. Again there, I needed a little bit more of the dark green because my brush took off that light green, so I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna add there. You see how it's a little bit darker? And I'm gonna do a little spot right, again, that light green. When you're working with a lot of paint on your brush, like sometimes you just need to go back and wash that brush and just start fresh. I usually like to keep the colors on my brush because it kind of ties all the colors together, but it doesn't always do exactly what you want it to do. But that's okay. Like I said before, art isn't perfect, but the world isn't perfect either. So there are our palm trees. And I know it doesn't look like your typical cartoony palm tree because palm trees just kind of dangle like that. So I think we are good to go ahead and add another layer to our pink flamingo, which is the shining part, the most important part of this piece. So go ahead and make sure that your brush is ready to go. I'm gonna start with my big brush, even though I probably should start with my little brush, but I just wanna make sure that I have a nice layer down here. I'm gonna go ahead and cover up that shading that I like because I wanna show that not everybody's gonna have that same thing. So I'm gonna wait and show you guys how to shade it. Okay, and pull it down. See, after that second layer, it's covering up real nicely. I haven't touched the top yet, but that bottom part is covering up real nice. And if you need a couple of layers to cover it up, that's not a big deal. Just pause the video. There we go. And it looks like I might need one more layer, and that's okay. That's okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to, if you get it on your table or your countertop, it's not a big deal. It's water-based, so it comes right off. So I just don't like doing it. So now we're gonna take our small flat brush, and this one right here, and I'm gonna go back and really concentrate on the head and the neck because I only did the body with the big brush. And if you look, it's covering up real nicely, just like that. There we go. And bring it down into the body because you don't want it to be all choppy. I mean, you know, it's your painting, so if you want it to be choppy, then that's on you. You do you, boo-boo. I'm gonna come back right here. Yeah, you see right here, I'm gonna need another layer. That's okay. You just wanna make sure it's nice and pink. And so now unfortunately, I don't have anything crazy to tell you right now, so we're gonna pause this and we're gonna let it dry. All right, guys, so it is nice and dry again. So I am going to take my pink again and add a little bit more because I ran out the last time. And I still have my white ready to go whenever I need it. It wasn't that long ago, it was only a couple of minutes ago. And, sorry, hope you can see that. And I'm gonna take my little brush this time, my little flat one. This one, right here. And I'm gonna get some of that pink. And this time I'm gonna really go after the spots that I know I want covered up. Okay, I'm gonna go up to the head. Now I'm gonna do some more cover up on the head. Don't worry about covering up this right here. You actually kind of want to be able to see where the beak is. We're just really working on covering up the blues. Okay. And I'm actually gonna leave this underside right here a little bit darker because I really like that. I like the way that that turned out. And if you want yours to turn out like that too, just cover it all up like I did. Problem solved. So now I'm gonna add a little bit of white with my pink. And I'm gonna start, it's not gonna be too much. It's gonna be like that. Can you see that? There you go, about that much. And we're gonna start adding in some, and don't worry, the more you color it and the more you add, if you add too much white, just add a little more pink. Add a little bit of pink on the back of my brush. Yeah, so white, pink, you want kind of a nice mix. Oh, a little more than that. Sometimes, yeah, kind of like that. And we're just gonna go to random spots of the flamingo and we're just gonna give it some shapes and add it in there. And it's okay at this point if it's a little choppy with the white, because that's actually pretty normal. Okay. I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna add some pink here. And if you notice what's happening over here is we're kind of defining our wings a little bit. And so in the painting that they have, that we're kind of drawing inspiration from, they tend to use red as the shadows, but I currently do not have any red. Oh, I messed up. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. That is an easy fix. We're gonna come back with blue here in a little bit and we'll fix that right up. No problem. Remember, we're just putting it in the spots where we feel like it could use it, where we like it. Kind of keep the white on the top, the lightest parts on the top, because that's the part that's closest to the sun. If you want to smooth it out with your fingers, that's cool too. Anything you want to be a tool is a tool. Men would disagree. So if you're a dude, you're doing this, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so we're gonna and we're still leaving some dark because we like that dark. And I'm gonna kind of bring this to a little bit of a close here. We got another mess up, but that's okay. That one wiped right off. And we're gonna go beep, beep, beep. A little more white. Need a little more white for that. Okay, I'm gonna turn my brush to the side and I'm gonna kind of do like that to give it a little bit of a different texture. Notice how I'm trying to keep that bottom part a little bit darker. I still need more pink. I think I did it too white. That's okay. Just add in some pink, and again, leave it chunky. If you're brave, leave it a little chunky because it makes it interesting. So we're gonna come back with this pink over here. We're gonna bring it up. We're gonna kind of blend it. There you go. We got a pretty solid Flamingo. Not bad. I'm gonna go ahead and wash my brush, and I don't really have a red on hand, so I'm going to use the solid pink with a little tiny bit of blue to make the shading happen. So I'm gonna take that pink right here and put it over here in its little spot. I'm gonna take a little bit of that blue that we were using earlier for the trees, and that's probably too much. I just put that much. I'm gonna come over here, dab off the excess, and I'm gonna mix that. And I was correct, that was way too much. Blue has a tendency to be pretty overpowering. So I'm gonna do this, and we have kind of a light purple, and I'm just gonna keep adding some pink until I get kind of like a lilac color, I guess is what you would call it. And so I have kind of this going. And now at this point, I'm gonna really try to get off a lot of that excess paint because we don't want a lot in this shading. Okay, so we're gonna take a little bit of that lilac, and we're gonna come over here and we're just gonna lightly go down like this. Now, if you'd rather use red, that's okay. You go ahead, make your dreams come true. I know usually you're not supposed to use your fingers on it, but I do sometimes. It doesn't hurt anything. And I'm gonna kind of give a little bit of shadow here, a little here. I'm trying to make it, for the most part, kind of come to like a point without really creating an actual point. Okay. I'd like a little bit more myself, so I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna add it here, and I'm gonna let it come down. And what I like about, instead of just switching over to the red and using the colors that we're already using to create these shadows, is that it really goes and it blends because we're using the same colors that we used before. And so I would like to add a little bit right here on the bottom of the head, like that. Maybe not all the way over there, that's okay. Easy fix. You can add more or less if you'd like. But I think for me, for my picture, I'm gonna add just a little bit down at the legs, and just on the one leg, because I want it to be apparent that that one's kind of in the background. So I'm gonna leave that one a little bit lighter, and then I'm gonna hit this spot right here with just a little more of that lilac purple color. Again, we just want it smooth and blended. So I'm kind of thinking that looks a little clumpier than I'd like, so I'm gonna smooth that out. if I'm not really liking the way that something looks, I can always come back with a little bit of pink and cover it up, or mix it so that it's a little bit lighter. Ta-da! And now that I've actually looked at it, I'm kind of okay with this. It doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would. Like I had honestly forgotten about it until just a minute ago when I was working really close to that area. Now what I do want to come back is I want to come back, and I don't like seeing all of these little spots that are still textured from the canvas. And so I'm gonna add a little bit more paint in those areas to try to get rid of that. And you know, you might end up with a little bit of color in other places that you hadn't intended, but I think it's Bob Ross that says that mistakes are just happy accidents. It's no problem. It's just gonna make your art a little more unique to you. Okay, so there we have our flamingo. And maybe his neck could be a little bit longer, but you know what? That's a flamingo. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to work on the beak now. And so we're gonna take this white right here. We're gonna put some over here. And we're gonna take that pink and we're gonna mix it with that white. And we're gonna end up with a really, really light baby pink, because that is the color of most of the beak. So we're gonna come back and we're gonna deal with the rest later. And so now we have, it should look, oh no, it's still, okay. It says it's still recording, but I have low battery. So it should, let me see if I can get rid of that, close. Okay, it should look like this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna go like this. And I'm gonna let it go onto there and I'm gonna round it out. Make sure it's nice and round. And we're gonna do right here. And I know we're covering that up a little bit, but it's not a big deal. It's not gonna hurt anything because we can still see it. Okay. If you go a little onto the bottom part, it's okay, because we're gonna come back with some black. Okay, and if you want a little bit of shadow on it, you don't have to, but you'll just take a little bit of your regular pink, just to, whoops, try to get some of that light pink off. Take just a little tiny bit of your regular pink and go in like this and kind of blend it into that pink. And then, yeah. There you go. Just a little shading, not too much. Again, it's okay if it goes over into that spot because we're gonna come back with black in a minute. If you are wanting to get a little more specific and a little more detailed with it, you can always come in with your round brush. Your round brush has a nice pointed tip, which is really nice. So, like I'm seeing a couple of imperfections that I'd like to spot right there. And I'd like to just kind of smooth out that line. There we go. All right, so now we're ready for some black. And I like to save the black to the end because black is one of those colors that once you kind of mess up with it, like that's a hard one to cut. That's a hard one to fix. So I like to put black off to the very end. So now you should be taking this color and you're gonna put a little bit on your palette. Just a little. And it's okay if it goes over some of the dry colors. My black is a little less solid black and a little more like a really, really, really dark gray. Again, that's fine, you know, it is what it is. Like we're gonna have different things happening on our paintings, and that's all right. So if you have solid black, that's great. If you have really, really, really dark gray that's almost black, that's good too. And you're gonna take your round brush, this one right here, And you're gonna load it up with that black, not too much, because we're kind of working in a small area. And you're gonna fill it in. And it might take 1 or 2 coats, and it's okay. And even mine is not perfect. It's okay. I wish my brush would stay a little bit more straight so that I could get that line. If you're, I'm a little OCD about my lines, and so if you are too, I would recommend a Sharpie for this part. There we go. Just get it to something that you can live with. There we go, just like that. Okay. And you're gonna bring it up, but don't bring it up all the way. Just bring it up a good portion, because that's what a flamingo's beak does. And now, while we wait for that to dry so we can do our second layer, because I like to work in layers, we are going to do an eyeball. Now, our original picture, our inspiration picture, has the eyeball kind of down here, and I'm not really fond of that. If you want that, that's fine, but I'm gonna do mine right about there. And you're just gonna do a little circle, just like that. You can do it bigger if you want a bigger one. You can do a smaller one if you want a smaller. And it's cool because now we're finally seeing the flamingo come together. And I'm sorry if I sound a little excited, but I'm a little excited. Let me live my life. Okay. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that brush while we let those two things dry. And we're gonna come right here in the middle of this thing. And we're gonna draw a line straight down. Now, I had originally had the markings for this all done, but as you saw, I ended up painting over them. I'm so sorry. So if you did it too, we're all in this together. And then we're gonna take this one and we're gonna make it bent. We're gonna go about right there. And then we're gonna bring it back in. And it's okay if it kind of runs out of paint, because we'll just go back over it. Now, is this painting perfect? Absolutely. I'm just kidding. This is not a perfect painting. No painting is a perfect painting, and the longer you sit and stare at your work, the more flaws you're gonna see. And so just know that sometimes it's really good to walk away from your paintings and then come back with fresh eyes. Okay, so now something that we're all used to seeing on flamingos are the little knobby knees. And so we're gonna add some knobby knees. We're gonna put one right here. And we're gonna do that just by adding a little circle. Ta-da, knobby knee. And then we're gonna go really close, maybe just a little bit down, and we're gonna add kind of a long knobby knee right there. And you want them to be more like ovals than circles. If it's more of a circle, you just elongate it a little bit. But theirs are more oval. There you go, we got some nice legs. I'm not fond of how this one turned out, which is why I say that the black is really hard to work with, and unfortunately this may just have to be a mistake that I have to live with. I'm gonna come back with my smaller, more flat brush, and I'm gonna add a little bit of white to it, and I'm going to give it some highlights, and I'm gonna keep it on the right side of the leg. I'm just gonna do some like that. And it kind of makes it look like it's a little connected. If you want to blend it, great. If you don't, that's cool too. Okay. Maybe add a little more white here. Put it there like that. Ah, no thank you. So I got a little in the way over there, and that happens sometimes. But we're already so far into this that I don't want to just start it over, you know? And I think I have a little too much white on it, and that's okay. And I'm just gonna go back with it black, and I'm gonna add it right back like this. It's okay if it's not perfect. I don't know if I'm trying to convince you that or I'm trying to convince myself that. I'm doing the best that I can here, guys. Bear with me. Okay, and so I'm gonna kind of leave it there like that. And we've got our flamingo legs. And I'm going to grab that same brush again, and I'm gonna hit my pink, and I'm gonna come down here and see if I can cover it up a little bit, that black, because I didn't quite keep it as straight as I wanted it to down there. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We have our flamingo legs. Okay, and we're gonna come back with our small round brush, this one. And I think it's time to go over and give this a second go. So try to stay in the lines the best you can from the first one. Notice how it's a little bit darker than it was. This is good. We like that. And then we're gonna hit that up there. And let's see. We're gonna give it just a little tiny bit of white. Like so tiny, like you can barely even see it on the brush, tiny. And we're gonna go from the tip and we're gonna kind of give it an angle like that. And I'm still gonna come back and I'm gonna blend that out even more because I don't really like how that turned out. And then I'm gonna come back with some black and see if I can push that in just a little bit. And what we've done is we've created that beak part. And it's very, very, very subtle. Okay, and I'm gonna go back down because I keep looking at the way these legs turned out. And I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist. And so I have to come back and I have to try to fix this up a little bit. There we go. Like I said, just get your mistakes to something that you can live with. If you do that, you'll be just fine. And so now we've kind of mellowed that white out a little bit. I thought it was too much. And I'm gonna see if I can go back and fix some of these spots with this blue color that we have and see if we can't get it looking where we want it. And so now, the very last thing that we're gonna do before touch-ups is we're gonna take just a little bit of white on our round brush, the very tip, and we're just going in for a little dot, okay? We're gonna do, and really you want the brush to be as pointed as possible because it gives it a much better effect, so don't push down on it. We're going like this, and it's gonna be one dot here, and we're gonna stop there. I thought about doing another dot. If you want to do another dot, that's fine. But for me, for my picture, I'm stopping there. All right. So now let's see if we can't fix up some of these spots that bother me a little bit. So I'm gonna take this, because both of the spots that I'm not really fond of, here and down here on the leg, are both in that water that we did earlier. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that color, and I'm going to take my round brush, and I'm gonna see if we can fix it a little bit. Make sure that you have all the other color from earlier off. And we're gonna come over here, and we're just gonna do like this. Draw a line. There we go. No, it's that white. Okay, so at the bottom, it's mixed a little bit with white. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that color plus a little bit of the white there. And I'm just gonna follow the lines that I gave myself to begin with. And if I do that, we should start to see our mistake just kind of be erased. Just be real smooth with it. I'm gonna use a little bit of water to make it happen, to smooth it out. And I think I'm gonna come back with a little extra white because I don't like how the color just jumps. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna bring that white right up like that. There we go. Now we've got some errors fixed. I'm gonna go back in any other spots where I feel like I really just wanna start seeing a little bit more, where I wanna see it a little bit different. I'm gonna hit with the same colors as the background. So like this, I think I went a little too far in with the neck. So I'm gonna just touch the top and then just come down a little bit. And then just give it that little bit of white blend right there. Okay. Just a little tiny bit. If you want to add more white in while you're at it, go ahead. Like, this is your chance to make this painting exactly what you want it to be. Like I said, I wasn't super happy with how mine turned out towards the end, so I just went back and fixed it. It's not a problem. It can always be fixed. Okay, and if you see, I did it again. I got a little out of line on the tail, and I don't really like that. So I'm just gonna cover it up like that. If you're actually an artist and you're seeing this, I'm so sorry. And there you have it. There's your pink flamingo chilling out on the beach with a fork palm tree. And now the most important part, and probably my favorite part, that's a lie, I like the painting part, but I do really enjoy this part, is I love to go back and sign my name to my work because I worked really hard on it, and it's nice to share that. And so I'm gonna come down here into this corner, right like this, and I'm gonna put my initials. I'm using a Sharpie. You can use paint if you want, but paint tends to come out a little bit thicker. And there you go. We have a flamingo. I hope you guys had fun, and we're gonna be doing another painting here in the next few weeks, and I hope you join us then. Bye.